Hey friends, for today's video I want to talk about trust bankruptcy, or what do you do when you don't trust yourself. And I guess I'll start with my backstory, which is that I was a very, ADHD child, very scatterbrained, um, curiosity directed, right? I wasn't able to do, I never quite learned how to focus. I never quite learned how to set a schedule and follow it. Like I tried, but I failed over and over again, and it was very demoralizing and upsetting. And when I went to school, it all started when I went to school. So before I went to school, I could just do whatever I liked whenever I wanted to, and it seemed mostly fine. And then when I went to school, there are timetables and there's homework and there's all these structured ways of being that you're supposed to be, and I couldn't do it. And reflecting on this now, my parents ran their own business, so they did operate on their own schedules as well. So like I didn't really have much of an example to follow of what it's like to have like a strict schedule of some kind. And I also developed the terrible, terrible habit of lying, of to kind of say whatever words need to be said to get people off my back. And I would do this internally as well. That's the worst part. I would tell myself and think that I mean it when I said something like, "Oh, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna." I mean, so I'll go home first, and then I'll feel like playing video games or watching anime on MTV on television, and I would be like, I would tell myself, "Oh, I'll play for a while, and then I'll do my homework later," and I'll end up playing, having fun, whatever, for hours until it's too late, and then I get sleepy, and then I'm too tired to do my homework. And so what I would do is I would bargain with myself, and I'll be like, okay, we're too tired to do our homework now. Let's go to bed and let's wake up at like 5 a.m., set an alarm or something, wake up at 5 a.m. and do my homework then. But I would wake up tired, and very rarely would I actually get around to doing my homework. And so I would go to school, I would be anxious, I would try to get my homework done like on the bus, or in like I'll try to do, like, if my first class is math and then my second class is science, I would try to do my science homework during math class, and so on. And that was just a horrible experience and a horrible existence. And even then, the solution was obvious, right? Just do your homework, right? Do it ahead of time before you have fun. But like, I think I had a kind of scarcity mindset, or maybe I don't know if it's too strong to say a poverty mindset, but I just felt like I had no experience of things going well, and so I felt like things were always going to go poorly. And so I think the part of me that wanted to have fun, the part of me that was curiosity directed and fun loving and whatever, it kind of, and now I have like the language and the frameworks for thinking about these things, right? It's like they are competing interests in the mind. And it's like there's a guy who doesn't speak up at the meeting, and then after the meeting is over, he finds some way to manipulate things around to get the outcome that he wants. Like, that's what my fun-loving self, I can frame it in a bunch of different ways, right? Like, when I frame it in terms of the meeting, it seems a bit more sinister. But it's also like there's some desperate part of you that's afraid of the other part of you and doesn't want to, doesn't feel like it has the right to speak up, doesn't feel, and like the longer you've gone, the longer I went not doing my homework and getting into trouble, the more and more I felt like, oh, I can't have fun. Like, I haven't earned the right to have fun. But there's a part of me that's like, fuck that, I have to have fun no matter what, because I'm like, this is my life, and like, if I don't have fun now, then I'm just gonna die miserable, right? Because I'll always be miserable, because I've never fixed anything in my life, and everything's just shitty. And I remember what that feels like. I even remember feeling that way at work, right? Like 10 years later, when I had a great boss, great colleagues, great work environment. And I could never properly enjoy our milestones and our celebrations and stuff like that, because I always be thinking, oh, but this blog post is overdue, or like this task is undone, and I always just felt anxious and guilty and ashamed in my life all the time. Wow, it was so unpleasant. And nobody was gonna save me from that, in a sense, right? Everybody's got their own problems, everybody's dealing with their own shit. And I remember, I was journaling a lot the whole time, and I remember kind of, I would beat myself up about it sometimes, I would plead with myself sometimes. I remember very specifically when I was a teenager. One day I was crying. I was in like the bathroom in my home. I was like pointing at myself in the mirror, and I was like, "Why won't you fucking study? You know, why don't you do your fucking homework? Like it's so much. Like you're getting into so much trouble. Your parents are upset with you. Your teachers are frustrated with you. Like your friends think, like your classmates think there's something wrong with you. Like, why do you continue with this destructive path? Why don't you just do the right thing?" And I was crying and miserable and sad, and it didn't help. You know, it. I might have done like my homework that day, but like a couple of days later, I was back in my on my bullshit, and I feel like I now understand the whole thing better, and you know, I have a bunch of riffs about that. One of it is that, you know, so I was trying to do negative reinforcement. I was trying to punish myself for things that were going badly, and hoping that with sufficient punishment for the bad, eventually things will be good. And I now believe that that's a terrible way of approaching things. And what I should have really been doing is positive reinforcement for what I wanted. And when things felt too big, right, I should have gone smaller. And but you know, small always feels like not enough, like too little, too late, that kind of thing. But that's bullshit. Like any progress is progress, and it's precious, however long it takes and however small it is. And big things start as little things, right? So you know, so to answer the question, what do you do if you don't trust yourself, right? You have to unpack that. What does that mean? Trust yourself to do what? Because it doesn't make sense to talk about trust in this absolutist, essentialist kind of big, like either I am a trustworthy person or I'm not. And then it becomes moralizing, right? It becomes like I'm an untrustworthy person because I am sinful and shitty and bad and like you spiral. Whereas, you know, it's not so much a moral problem. It's not so much a moral problem. It's actually more of a logistics problem. And logistics are solvable. And I know, like from my personal experience, like playing video games, I know that I learn logistics in video games and I can execute those things and I can learn skills and get better. But you know, the thing about games is that it's not your life, so you don't feel a sense of moral failing when you make a mistake in a video game, right? So that's the complication. But so the lesson to learn is to focus on tiny wins. Like you might say, I cannot trust myself whatsoever. Like that's way too broad, way too vague, way too general, and easy to disprove in tiny pockets. So it's like the way to earn back your trust or to build trust where there was none is to do what you say you're gonna do, right? I mean, so broadly, trust is I trust myself to do what I say I'm gonna do. And people tend to fixate on the do part, but actually half the problem, or like most of the problem, can be solved at the say part. So you gotta stop making promises that you can't keep. You gotta stop lying to people, right? And yourself. And you gotta instead start practicing making very, very small predictions about what you're gonna do immediately, right? And that can feel silly, like, you know, so write down, I am going to do 5 push-ups, right? To-do list box. Just for the sake of it, I am going to do 5 push-ups, and then immediately sit down, like go down and do the 5 push-ups. Then tick the box. It seems really trivial and pointless, but now you can say, I trust myself to say that I'm gonna do 5 push-ups and do them, right? And so having done that, you have now earned a little, you know, 10 cents of trust, or like 50 cents of trust. And then you repeat that, like I am going to, you look around your life, I'm looking at my desk now, and I'm like, okay, I am going to tidy my desk a little bit, right, for 5 minutes. Like, and you have to design these things such that the utterance is, you know, like there's this thing about setting SMART goals, which are like measurable, concrete, I don't know the specific words, but like just, you want to design your task. So you don't want to be like, I'm going to do my homework today. That's broad, and it's a long time scale, and it's vague, it's open to interpretation. You want to simplify it down to like, I'm going to spend half an hour working on the math problems from chapter 3. Right? That's concrete. And then I'm going to reward myself after that. Like, you know, and I know people say things like, there's this whole meme that I completely agree with, which is like, you know, but you can just reward yourself right away though. Like, that's true. Like, and I did that for a long time, and it was, you know, it did feel like I was getting away with something, but on a long enough time scale, you feel that the lack of trust the lack of self-trust and the lack of self-respect is something that becomes oppressive and frustrating, and just if you can't respect yourself, you don't enjoy yourself as a roommate in your head, and then that tension and unpleasantness, it comes out in your face, it comes out in your utterances, in your body language, and other people, it just spirals out of control. So again, and the point is not to be I'm the most trustworthy man alive, or like I do everything I say I'm gonna do. Like even now I don't do every single thing I say I'm gonna do, but it's a process. I negotiate it, and whenever I feel like I haven't been doing the things I've been saying, I try to then I like suspend the project, or I take a pause. I take a piece of paper from my notebook, and I'm like, what do I want to do today that I can do today? Like, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend half an hour updating the book that I'm working on, right? I'm gonna talk to this. I'm gonna send out this one email, and then each small task that you set for yourself, and then you do it, it builds trust. And becoming someone that you can trust is one of the most valuable things I think you can do with your life. And like it's night and day, the people who trust themselves and the people who don't. And there are people who have like blind faith in themselves, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this cool, calm, measured, almost sleepy, casual confidence that comes from knowing that if you say something, you're going to make it happen. And it can become kind of subconscious, the way you can type without thinking about each letter. Like you can start doing things without thinking about what you're doing, and that might seem very far away for some people, but I have been on that journey, and I want to say that it's possible. And you do have to believe, and like I don't necessarily think you need to believe in like this grand promise of, oh, everything's going to be great, like, but it's sort of more, you think about reflect on what was a part of your life a long time ago, or what your state was a long time ago, and how your life now is different than it was then. And just consider that all of your experience, which is real and yours and true, is still not the whole picture. And there's a whole world beyond what you have seen so far. Just as, there's a whole world, there's other countries that you haven't visited that you don't know what it's like, the cultures are different, and so on. Anyway, I don't want this video to be too long. So ask me any questions you have. I do want to expand on this. I am writing a book about this. And thanks for hanging out. Done.